Doesn't the aroma of spice cake baking in the oven just take you back to your grandma's kitchen? Today I'm showing you how to make homemade spice cupcakes. These cupcakes are easy, but they're 100% from scratch, and they have caramel buttercream swirled on top. They're fantastic. Let me show you how to make them. Now, mixing up this batter is a two-step process. We'll start first with dry ingredients. So in this bowl, I have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'll add half of a teaspoon of baking soda and half of a teaspoon of salt. And then take a whisk and whisk those together. And then go ahead and push that to the side, and we'll mix together the wet ingredients. Into this bowl, I'll put half of a cup of butter, or 1 stick. Then I'll put in 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, 1/4 of a cup of white sugar, and then 2 large eggs. Take a hand mixer and whisk those ingredients together. And then we'll add half of a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half of a teaspoon of nutmeg, and half of a teaspoon of cloves. Now you can adjust those spices if you'd like your spice cake to have a little bit more of a kick. Go ahead and add a little bit more nutmeg or cloves to the batter. Then take a mixture and mix that in. Then we'll alternately add the flour mixture and a little bit of buttermilk. This is 2/3 of a cup of buttermilk. So we'll alternate. I'll put in about half of the flour and mix that in. And before that's completely mixed in, I'll go ahead and add about half of the buttermilk. Then I'll add the remaining flour. And then the last bit of buttermilk. Take a spatula and just scrape the sides of the bowl if you need to get all that flour and butter off the sides. And then mix again. Let's get the cupcake pan ready. Now you can see here I have a huge cupcake pan. This is a 2 dozen cupcake pan. This recipe though only makes about 18 to 20 cupcakes. So I've put some cupcake liners in, and we'll go ahead and fill the cupcake liners. We like to use a cookie scoop to scoop out the batter. It just helps get the cupcakes as uniform as possible. You don't want to overfill the cupcakes. Really, about halfway is all you need to fill these, because these cupcakes will rise. And if they overflow the pan, then they just don't look quite as pretty. I'm gonna use a spatula to get that last little bit of cupcake batter out. I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and these cupcakes will bake for about 18 to 20 minutes. The center of a cupcake should spring back when you touch it. Now, as the cupcakes are cooling, you can whip up your caramel buttercream. Take 1 stick of butter, that's half of a cup of butter. Make sure that the butter is softened. At room temperature is fine, but you do not want it melted, or the frosting will have a strange consistency. Take a hand mixer and whip that butter until it's smooth and creamy. Then you can add in the powdered sugar. We use 2 cups of powdered sugar, and then whip that together. Now this texture is not going to cream together. It's going to be really crumbly, and that's okay. That's the way you want it to be. Once the mixture resembles very coarse crumbs, you can go ahead and add the caramel. We like to use Hershey's caramel topping. It's a little bit thicker than some of the other caramel ice cream toppings out there. So we use 1/3 of a cup of Hershey's caramel topping. If you use a different kind and find it's a different consistency than this, you may end up having to add just a touch more powdered sugar, and that will be fine. But if you want to use exactly what we use, we like the Hershey's caramel. Add that 1/3 of a cup in, and then mix it together. Now it's going to start out really sticky and look like it's not blending, but just give it time, keep mixing on low speed so powdered sugar doesn't go flying everywhere, and it should all come together. Now this is a good point to stop and taste it. If you think the frosting is too sweet, go ahead and add a pinch of a high quality sea salt, and it will really cut back on that sweetness. We actually use salted butter in our frosting, and that helps cut down on the sweetness also. And then we'll fill our frosting bag and decorate the cupcakes. I have a large frosting tip in the end of a disposable pastry bag. This is tip 2D, and it has a pretty star on the end, and it will make a beautiful swirl on top of your cupcakes. So I have the top of the bag folded over, and I'll take a spatula and just fill the bag with our frosting. Now, this doesn't make a ton of frosting, so if you like to pile your cupcakes really high with frosting, you may want to make a double batch. You can always start with one, and then if you need to whip up a little bit more, you can always do that. Squeeze all that frosting down to the tip. Then it's time to make your swirls. Now you want to make sure that the cupcakes are totally cool, because if they're warm at all, that frosting is just going to slide off. Take your frosting bag, hold it perpendicular to a cupcake, and just squeeze a swirl of frosting on. Now you can put some sprinkles on top if you'd like. You can sprinkle the top with a little bit of cinnamon, even take a short cinnamon stick and decorate the top with just a little cinnamon stick sticking out. There's so many different things you can do. If you love this recipe, head over to thebestcakerecipes.com, search for Easy Spice Cupcakes, and you'll find this recipe. You can print it out there and keep it in your recipe book. I'm Julie, thanks for watching today. Be sure to check back soon for a new video.